Hi, my name is Alicia Acosta, and today I'll be presenting an analysis of Kurt Vonnegut Jr.'s To Be or Not to Be. So, to start with, born in Indianapolis in 1922, Kurt Vonnegut would eventually grow to be one of the most prolific writers of the 20th century, one of the most lauded writers, often credited with assisting in the cultivation of the satirical movement in American literature. He's known primarily for Slaughterhouse-Five, which is a novel about a veteran attempting to recount his experience in Dresden in the height of World War II. Vonnegut relies heavily on dark humor and sardonic wit to carry across satirical messages that are often about the government and society at large. To Be or Not to Be specifically explores themes of governmental control in a futuristic world and the kind of perversion of what we might consider a utopia. All in all, Vonnegut's To Be or Not to Be is both an exploration and a critique of common notions surrounding mortality, government control, and what the ever-elusive utopia American society strives for might look like. So, on to my first main point. Vonnegut's exploration of mortality serves as the catalyst for most of the major events throughout the work. Primarily, the painter's mural, which is nicknamed the Happy Garden of Life, is crucial in terms of understanding this new society's understanding of mortality. So the painter, for one, seems quite cynical for a man in his line of work. It is his job to create artwork that displays the beauty of an ageless, immortal society. So his kind of laissez-faire attitude surrounding life and death is really interesting and kind of poses him as a character that we can look to help understand what we should be feeling morally surrounding the way that this society views mortality. On page 5, he says a body's a body in reference to the faceless characters that he's been depicting on the wall in the mural that he's creating. So these faceless characters illustrate a kind of detachment from any true real meaning. Because life is no longer temporal or fragile, citizens of the society have no actual way of measuring their achievements, successes, failures, aspirations, or even their identities. Dr. Hitz is another symbolic example of this detachment. He serves as a figure meant to mirror God in kind of a roundabout way. He's both the chief obstetrician, the one who brings life into the world, and the creator of the loosely ethical suicide chambers. This subversion of the role of God in a modern context provides some commentary not only on mortality, but on religion as well as a whole, as Hitz's character is marred with many references to things like outside of the boundaries of traditional Abrahamic faith. For example, he is described as being nearly 7 feet tall, which I interpreted as a reference to the 7 deadly sins. As he absorbs the lives of those he deems fit to exterminate, and as he ages in their stead, he appears less and less human and more like the tyrannical god overseeing a flock that he deems weak and less than. Vonnegut's dark humor shines through in the segment of the work where he lists the many names of the various suicide chambers, which are all, in their own ways, very outlandish and remarkable. Canary, or cannery, is one of the ones that I wanted to discuss because of its resemblance to the word canary. Cannery refers to a factory where cans would receive their lids that they would have to be punched through. But canary is a reference to the bird, often used in coal mines, who would sing to alert miners of possible threatening gases that might do harm to them and their lives. So I felt that that was a very interesting thing to include in a very like a way to lighten these concepts of mortality. It's very clear that society as a whole at this point in the story finds solutions for the human experience, and as a result of that, mortality becomes less and less valuable. This abundance of life in some ways creates a lack of meaning and connection. Moving on to my second main point, mortality and sacrifice as it is explored in such a society creates a lot of really interesting moral incongruencies. So perhaps the most prevalent of these incongruencies is the one that we can observe between Welling and Leora, who seem diametrically opposed in a lot of ways. Both pupils of the establishment of the society that they've grown up in, they've taken two very different approaches to understanding the meaning of life and its inherent value. Leora is in support of the system established by Hitz, while Welling is against it. we can understand kind of these differences in their understandings because of their very different life stages. Leora appears almost childlike. She's very reverent of Dr. Hitz, while Welling appears older, a little firmer, and a little more hardened, likely because of his proximity to fatherhood and his understanding of the responsibilities that he now has to protect his family. Another really interesting exploration of morality comes in the form of the painter and his view of suicide at the beginning versus at the end of the work. Initially, he claims that he will take his own life on his own terms when he is ready, but by the end, he's dialing the number of one of the chambers and asking to make an appointment. So there are two pathways that this story could be going down through this arc with the painter. The first might be that the orderly statement in the very beginning of the work that not leaving a mess behind after you take your own life, that might have swayed the painter after seeing the carnage left behind in the wake of Welling's crime after he murdered Leora and the doctor and killed himself. Or, given the complex ethical conversation that has just unfolded before the painter, he might have realized that there truly is no worth to a life that goes on forever. In this case, he decides to leave it behind in the end, which in many ways is a calculated act of protest, not unlike Welling's murder-suicide. So my third main point is governmental control and the existence of a utopia. So it's clear from the beginning that despite the narrator's assertion that everything is quote-unquote swell, not everything is as it seems. The government's level of control and regulation in handling the population, while it does create a functional utopia, simultaneously strips the civilians of their claim to any real human experience. They exist at the whim of a board of overseers who are essentially bureaucrats with a monopoly on life. Welling's choice to kill himself, Leora, and Hitz is a very complicated thing. In many ways, it's heroic, and in many ways, it's almost monstrous. The ethical dilemma of whether or not their lives were worth any more or any less than his 3 children's is a great one. One has to consider also that in killing Leora and Hitz, Welling is upholding the same system he is so against to begin with. It's an important distinction to make that this act is one of civil disobedience in a way. What he does, despite its moral implications, is technically in accordance with Hitz's law. Vonnegut does this very intentionally. The depiction of the government's ruling leaves us, the audience, with a very unique perspective. What is legal is not always moral, and what is precious is only precious because of its culpability to expire. That's all I have prepared. Thank you very much, and I hope that this has illuminated some of the very interesting themes in this work. Thank you.